Welcome to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Welcome everybody to Wholesale Hotline. What episode are we on today? 194. 194 episodes not missed, guys. We get about 200 to 400,000 downloads of the show every single month. So thank you guys for subscribing to the YouTube channels. Thank you for giving us some love. Our channel just hit 250,000, which is awesome. Brent and Jamil are blowing up on their channels as well. This is freaking amazing, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. We have an amazing topic to talk about today. We are going to be talking about the recent conversations in the agent world and how does that change the world for the real estate investors like ourselves, whether you're a wholesaler, whether you're a transaction coordinator, whether you're an agent that already works with investors. How does this change the world that we are operating in? I think it's going to make a massive impact. I think it's going to create waves, and it already is creating waves of at least understanding and maybe more confusion than anything else. What is going to change with agents. And so we have a special guest with us today. He's a gentleman out of California, and his name is Aaron Novello. I've been watching him on social media. I'd say the last 3 or 4 months, he's been popping up in my feed. I followed him because, you know, you'll see stuff like in your feed and you go, oh, that was pretty good. You pass. Then you go, oh, that was pretty good. You pass. And then like the 4th time, you're, damn, dude, this guy just dropped fire. And then you give him a little bit of a follow. So welcome to the stage, Aaron Novello. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, brother. I'm really glad to be here with you guys today.
Thank you, dude. Our audience primarily are either A, wholesalers, or B, real estate investors, people that are buying and holding. And I'd say about 40-50% of our audience are licensed agents, but don't do that as their primary objective. They use their license maybe to have MLS access. They use their license to have data from, you know, all of those things. And they probably take some listings here and there. I'd say 4 or 5 a year. But they're not shooting to be full-time real estate agents. And Jamil, who is over there looking like he's all about like he's a robot essentially.
I know I thought you said secret agent, so I told Brent wear your glasses, but we're talking about real estate agents.
Real estate agent.
Oh, okay.
Real estate agent. Yeah. Dang it.
Damn
So
it. Okay.
Jamil, his primary thing he teaches his community is how to do agent outreach to do deals with them. And so we wanted to bring an agent on here that, dude, you're killing the game on training agents on how to close more deals, how to get more listings, how to build their business. And a lot of the stuff that you talk about actually can help real estate investors in the way that they communicate, the speed in which they communicate, the efficiency, and overcoming objections, bro. You're phenomenal at it. So thank you for coming in and hanging out on our show.
Sure. Again, it's my pleasure. You know, having been in real estate and done thousands of transactions, 50% of my business was probate and estates because I live in Heaven's Waiting Room. I'm actually in Southeast Florida. So,
oh, you're in Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So as such, I would bump into investors on a regular basis, and my competition truly was not other agents. It was investors that were reaching out as well with, you know, the opportunity.
This is great. I did not know that. So one, you call it what? Heaven's Waiting Room?
Heaven's Waiting Room in South Florida. Yeah. We have the largest elderly population in the country.
Are you in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah.
Bro, Fort Lauderdale is legit one of the coolest towns in all of Florida for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Did you move there, or have you always been there?
I've always been here. And it was interesting because at the beginning of my career, I only made $13,000 selling real estate at the beginning because I had an inaccurate assessment of reality. You know, I didn't understand that this game was like selling books door to door, knives door to door, subscriptions over the phone. And I was also in a very specific environment because in 2006, like That was a very specific economic environment and real estate environment in which everything was flying off the shelf. People had FOMO. If you dressed like a rum dum and had flip flops and didn't say anything stupid, you could still make $100,000, right? And I was selling a lot of condo conversions because I was in Gainesville, Florida, and that's what was moving, and they were paying 6% commissions to do that. And then the economic environment changed radically, and there was an economic collapse, and then all of those condo conversions went away.
Jamil, this is literally Jamil's story. He was 2000 Jamil, when did you get your first deal? What year was that?
2002, and I wholesaled single family until I moved into apartment buildings in around 2004. And for the purpose of condo conversions, actually, interestingly enough. And, watching all these developers make a bunch of money, I decided I wanted to be a developer myself. So in 2006, I ended up taking all of the cash that I had made as a wholesaler, and I purchased 4 apartment buildings. And by the end of 2008, I lost $12 million cash, all 4 buildings, my primary residence, my parents' primary residence, all our vehicles. But hey, I'm still here.
It was a very expensive learning experience. I had a mentor one time tell me it's just tuition to the game.
That's for sure. For sure. So how did you, what was, when the economic world changed, what was your next step? What were you?
Yeah. So I didn't know what to do. So I got access to the best coaches, the best trainers, the best mentors, and they gave me a specific strategy. They taught me that this was a sales business, and it allowed me to focus time and energy and stack my time on top of the skill of selling real estate in high volume, which compounds over time. It's what allows me to do everything that I'm doing now, not only sell 2,000 homes, but have a coaching company, attract agents, all that stuff. And he gave me also a strategy that worked in that environment, because it's interesting. Like if you asked agents, investors, was 2000, let's say that time frame that Jamil was just speaking about, 2006 to 2000, let's say 8, 9, was that a good time to be in the market? Depends on who you ask. Yeah. If you asked agents that were doing traditional business, they were sucking wind. If you asked agents that were doing
short sales,
REOs.
Yeah.
If they are working with investors, they made more money than they probably ever made in their whole life.
All the agents who are doing auction stuff and representing. Yeah, absolutely.
100%. It's because they pivoted, right? So at the time they were telling me, hey, you should be calling expired listings. Well, if you look at a chart of expired listings over the history, it was the absolute best time to be doing that. So I grew my business 25% year over year, from 0 to 100, in 5 years, working that particular.
So this was 2008 hits, economic change, the winds change everything. You guys jump on expired listings, which right now I think expired listings are one of the greatest lists you could call on right now, especially if you're using creative finance. It's like, oh my gosh, I get so many agents that I just recruit them to just call the expired listings. I'm like, wait, my broker told me to call expired listings. I'm like, yeah. We're not doing what your stupid broker told you. Okay. Your broker, the reason they call them brokers is because they're broker than you.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Call them and tell them that I want to buy their property on seller finance. I'll give them the number they want. They just got to give me the terms that make sense for both parties. And those agents are making great money, but the agents that are just trying to do traditional listings right now are maybe having a little bit of a harder time. So you started calling expired listings in 2008 through 2013. That was your main market?
Yeah, that was the main market, and that's how we grew. And then what happened is in 2010, 11, the marketplace gets better. So what happens to expireds?
They go
shrink.
away. Yeah.
So for 3 months, I'm beating my head against the wall. And I realized, look, there's not enough leads in order for me to continue to grow and expand. And that is completely unacceptable to me. So I'm going to either find the way or I'm going to make the way. And serendipitously, I was in a mastermind group. This guy's talking about probates. He gives me access to this course. And I shifted and I changed the amount of time I'm calling expireds up probates. And 5 years later, it's 50% of our business. And
Love it.
What's interesting about that is that it's completely market resistant. Because, people are passing away and that happens no matter what. 65% of those homes are free and clear statistically. And if there is motivation, it's extremely high. right?
It's typically you're listing the property for the heir who does not want to deal with the property. They don't want to fix it up. They don't want to deal with the payments. That they're just like, dude, get rid of the freaking house. Is that typical seller?
And this is really interesting because what would happen is I would go directly to the personal representatives or executors, right? Because attorneys, they have gatekeepers and they think they're smarter than you. They don't want to talk to you. So I would get their contact information and contact information for beneficiaries, go directly to them, use that skill set that we've learned over an extended period of time. And it was not uncommon, Pace, that I would go in and they're like, hey, let me show you something. And they would drop on the counter like 200 mailings from investors and wholesalers. Yeah. And so then what happened was, which was interesting, is investors in the community started noticing that I was listing a lot of these properties and they were good values. So they started to reach out to me and I created a relationship with one locally. So when there was opportunities, I would just let him know about them. Same thing you guys are proposing or suggesting.
Yeah, sounds like the same relationship I have with Monique.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Aaron, before you came on the show, I was talking about an agent that we have come on here maybe once, twice a year. Her name is Monique Walker. She does the same thing for Jamil. Jamil probably makes $1 million and she makes $1 million a year. So both of them are taking home $1 million off of that one relationship every single year, doing exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know Monique. We were in mastermind groups together.
Oh, she's one of the best, dude. She's so great.
Yeah, she's solid. So yeah, you know, and what I think I want to circle back to something that you said about the broker. Like, you know, I understand we're being playful. Like what I'm aware of is really okay. So I was in a crowd and I recently asked somebody, I said, hey,
Aaron, let me introduce you to one of my best friends of all time, Jerry Norton. He showed up a little bit late because he's in Puerto Rico. He forgot what time zone it was.
No worries, dude. What's up?
It happened to me all day.
I was sharing with a group recently. I asked them a question. I said, how do you think we see? And they all look at me. I'm like, it's not a trick question. Like, how do you think we see? And they all tell me their eyes. I'm like, what if I told you that's not the way that you see? I'm like, well, what do you mean? I said, it's actually your mind that sees. So if your mind is blind to the possibility, your eyes will be blind to the opportunity. So in other words, there will be an opportunity right in front of you and you literally won't see it. So what you were talking about with the broker was more of him or her not seeing an opportunity that's right in front of them.
It's kind of like, if you really think about what you were talking about, probate would have worked during the same time frame that you were working on expired listings. Your brain did not know that opportunity was there. Therefore, your eyes did not see it.
100%. And I think agents have been brainwashed because a lot of the very influential voices in the coaching and training community have convinced agents that there's only 5 sources of business, which is expired, canceled, for sale by owners, just listed, just sold, and COI. And that's it.
What's COI? A circle of influence?
Yeah, center of influence and like, you know, that sort of thing. And what I'm aware of is they would actually be better served to think more like wholesalers, because I'm aware that you guys have a multitude of lists. There's probably
I think it's like 55 sources of deals. Yeah.
Right. So
it's crazy.
If they just thought about it that way, and then if they also open their mind to, hey, like if there's an opportunity here, I can provide you with multiple options. So one option is that perhaps we can purchase it, or we can, you know, something of that nature, and we can serve that need. And if you actually want retail at a higher price, then maybe we connect you with Paces people because they can do creative finance. So what it is it's a lack of knowledge and a lack of information is really what it is, right?
The challenge that we run into, and I love agents. My wife's an agent, my partner's an agent, Jerry's been an agent. Jamil, you're not licensed, are you?
No, but my whole
Brent, are you still licensed, Brent?
Yeah, and same story, Aaron. I mean, you went to probates. I just went to ugly houses, right? I would just drive around, find all the ugly houses and start calling them. But I can't tell you how many, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of calling canceled, expireds, just listed, just sold over and over, 9 to noon every day. And then I just switched it, right? Like you're talking about. You just switch it to a different avatar, a different filter that you can put out. And there's so many opportunities. And agents should know this as well. I mean, the wholesaling is an incredibly
what is the deal with that though? Like
here's the deal.
On the real estate side, here's our problem. I look at the licensed real estate market, 60,000 of them here in Maricopa County, where we're at. Monique obviously is in that county.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I say, maybe 5,000 to 6,000 of them actually make a real living here. Maybe. It's probably 55,000 of them, or I call them undercover agents. They have a part-time job doing something else. They give the agent world kind of a bad name because they're running around taking listings from family members that should have just hired a real professional agent. So I think part of it is that the oversaturation of agents in the market and how the consumer will hire agents because of out of obligation. I think a part of it has made it so agents are not loved in our world, but the agents, even at the top, they get a little bit cocky because I have a license and therefore I know things. And so they're not open to possibilities a lot of times. And it's not until the market pivots like it currently is right now that I think their minds finally open because their bank accounts dwindle down to nothing. Do you think I'm accurate on any of that stuff, or is it a different viewpoint?
A couple things I think you're accurate on. One is that 5% of the agents do 95% of the business, and that's statistical. So if you go into any brokerage, there'll be like 200 agents. There'll be 10 of them or 20 of them that do all of the business in the whole office, and everybody else shares whatever's left. The other thing I think that's true is that for a very long time, until we'll see what the ramifications are from this lawsuit, but the barrier to entry to become an agent is embarrassingly low. You need a 75 on a test, which is a C. You need $1,000 and you can't be a felon yet. That's it.
Yeah.
So what I'm aware of is
sadly it's lower to be a wholesaler, but I get the point.
So that leads to, mediocrity at scale, because there's no real barriers to entry, right? So I think as a ramification of these lawsuits, like there'll be appeals and we'll see what happens. But with we have to think first level consequences, second level consequences, and third level consequences. Most people only think first level. They don't continue down the chain. First level consequence to the agents is that a lot of them are going to go away, because what's happening is the consumer ultimately gets what they want. And what they want is highly professional, highly competent, but they want to pay them less. So they ultimately get what they want. So the marketplace is demanding more skill. So as such, we're on track to do 4.2 million sales in this calendar year, roughly. We did 6 million last year. So the last time we did 4.2 million was 2009. There was 990,000 agents. We have 1.6 million.
Wow.
So this is the Hunger Games.
Hold on. I got to write that down. Hold on, Aaron. Say that one more time. We're going to do 4.2 million this year.
That's right.
The last time we did that was 2009.
Sales commissions?
No.
Sales.
Okay. Houses
So
sold.
In previous year was 6 million.
Okay,
Right.
so in 2009 was the last time we had 4.2 million sales, and that was when we had 9,000 agents. We now have
990,000.
Okay, 990, and now we have how many?
1.6 million.
1.6 million.
Aaron, isn't it great that you go to real estate school and they teach you all about sales?
Yeah, it's really wild to me that the whole mechanism is antiquated. It is completely ripe for disruption, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that, again, a first level consequence, and I think also first level consequence, I know agents won't like me saying this, but I don't think it's any less true, is that there's an argument to be made that, all commissions are negotiable. I want to be clear on that.
They are.
Right?
They've always been negotiable.
They've always been negotiable.
How is there anything going to be different when they've always been negotiable in the first place?
We shall see how that shakes out. But they've always been negotiable. But here's what I think is
practice.
Yeah, but here's what I think is very interesting. I think there's a very, clear argument to be made that 5 to 6% ish commissions when homes were 50 to $100,000 made a lot of sense. Now that the average home is 400 to 500,000, and in some markets 700,000-800,000, somebody's making as much as a teacher makes all year long doing one deal. There's an argument to be made. Okay, it's a little high, but what I'm aware of is particularly high when agents don't add any value.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now what's being forced to happen is agents are having to up their value proposition. Number one, you got to be really skilled, not just in the sales process, but you have to be educated in economics and in finance and all these other things, right? The second thing is true is you got to be the hyper local expert. I mean, you guys are a perfect example of how media, so these big, huge companies that are pushing into our space, Zillow just bought Follow Up Boss, which is the biggest, right? And now they own Dotloop, which is all the transaction data. They own Showing Time, which is all the showing data. Now they own the biggest CRM, which is Follow Up Boss. They're a bank. They became a brokerage. It's very clear what they're doing. And what I'm aware of is they can do broad better than agents. You know what they can't do better than us? Hyper local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people need to be, putting their foot on the gas as far as media is concerned.
So
and
what's your first level of implication is what?
So less agents.
Less agents.
And they have to have more value.
Increase their skill.
Increase skill. And so there's multiple things. One, increase skill. Number two, increase presence. Because if you're the hyper local expert, with a high degree of probability, buyer's agents are going to have to start negotiating either a portion or all of their fee. If that happens, they have never had to do that before, ever. If I have a lot of attention as being someone, right, a lot of eyeballs that watch me for being someone that does deals locally, can be trusted, is that going to help me in the course of negotiating? 100%. Is that going to help me in the course of being able to do more deals? 100%. But this is something that a lot of people are sleeping on. You know this, I know this, right? And then a third level consequence is agents need to become vertically integrated. You see, because part of the reason,
what?
here's what I mean by that. So part of the reason why you guys say, like, how come agents don't see this? You know why? Because their head is stuck in the short game. They need money to pay bills, Pace.
Yeah.
So because of that, they're just thinking deals. Like, where's the next deal? Because I got to pay rent. They can't pick their head up long enough to look around and be like, oh, what has more leverage? What compounds? Like, what's a bigger opportunity, right? So what I mean by vertical integration is they need multiple ways of earning income, not just commissions. So having equity.
Is Aaron actually a wholesaler? Because I swear he's just saying.
He sounds a lot like a wholesaler, guys.
Like,
Gary, what do you think?
Guys, I promise you, we did not tell Aaron to say any of this. This is like, bro, you're speaking our
no, because here's
language.
Do you know why, Pace? Here's what's true. Because wholesalers, most of them live off the flips and the wholesales. They don't reinvest back in their business.
Wholesalers have to be able to find what opportunity exists in order for us to create value. Right. And that's the thing that agents are going to have to learn how to do.
And what I'm aware of is, like, wholesalers, like, they might think it's interesting, because, whenever we get good at something, we can get prideful and, get high on our own supply. So we think, like, as a wholesaler, like, oh, I'm like, dude, you got to look for deals just like agents. You ain't doing any shit different. You just might make a little bit more per deal, but, like, it's the same thing. And so what I think is true is, like, in order to insulate yourself from compression of net, which is what's happening, because the cost of sales rising dramatically for agents, they need CRMs, they need lead gen, they need to pay referral fees, they need to do all of this stuff. You have to have multiple flows, multiple streams. So one of that could be investing and owning things that pay you money. The second is being with a company that gives you equity. The third is a revenue share opportunity. Like, you have to vertically integrate, and that'll make up for the compression. Because if most agents are buy side heavy, right? Yep. So if they're going to have to start negotiating their own fee, with a super high degree of probability, revenue is going to go down 30%. Like, that's not me being, like, wild with that. So if that's what's true, they're going to have to have multiple ways of earning income.
Well, Jerry, welcome to the show, brother. How's Puerto Rico doing?
Good. Hot.
How is it hot? It's November 15th, dude.
It's just always hot. That's how it is.
I know. I'm just teasing you. I can't wait to spend the summer with you in Montana, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Counting down the days.
Yeah. So, Jerry, we haven't even talked about the main topic at hand. It was mostly introducing Aaron. Do you want to give us a quick breakdown of what's been going on with the National Association of Realtors and just kind of intro that? I think we could segue into what is going to happen with agents. Aaron's already hammered on a lot of amazing points that we're going to talk about. Aaron, again, dude, welcome to the show. You're a badass. People are enjoying it in the show. Guys, if you're enjoying it, we got about 600 people here live. If you're enjoying it, give Aaron some love in the comments, and we'll get to some Q&A here in probably like 30, 40 minutes. But Jerry, if you could, what's been going on? If for somebody that's been sleeping under a rock, what's happened, and who do you think is it going to impact the most? And then let's open it up to a discussion of what do we think agents should be doing, or how this is going to impact the buyer's agent in the next coming years.
Yeah, I think the at large, everybody has to understand the big picture as to what the argument here is. And the argument is around price fixing. And in America, we value quite a bit free trade. And so free trade is actually protected by the Department of Justice. There's an antitrust department. And if you think about it, if competitors collude to fix prices, then ultimately the consumer pays more, bad for everybody. So, our economy really thrives on a free trade system. So the argument here is that NAR and these big brokerages that have been added to these lawsuits, they collude to fix prices. Now, everybody says, well, it's always negotiable, but when the seller is paying the buyer's commission and NAR is requiring that is predetermined, and it's actually mandatory for an agent to list a property in the MLS, well, there's a really strong argument. And by the way, this has been going on for years. This is nothing new. It's just NAR's been able to kick the can down the road, right, for a long time, but they've been in multiple lawsuits. There's multiple more going on. It's a class action lawsuit that's going on right now. What's interesting is the minute that they awarded, treble damages of $5.3 billion, then instantly all these other copycat, lawsuits popped up. So because it's a class action, what that means is it means everybody can jump in. So this went from this one case went from Missouri and some, a handful to now really all of the United States. Everybody can now jump in on this class action suit. So it's fascinating because no longer is it kick the can down the road. The DOJ is very clear about what they want to see. They want to see sellers representing sellers getting paid by sellers. They want to see buyers represented by buyers' agents getting paid by buyers' agents. They want to see a clear distinction between the two. So that's going to radically transform, maybe not radically, but it's going to transform the way that buyer's agency is handled, because now the buyer has to pre-negotiate his commission. And so this is going to be what's going to change here. The biggest change I see with all of this is that agents are going to have to learn negotiation and sales. They're going to have to bring their value, like Aaron was saying. They're going to have to sell their value, whereas before they didn't have to. It was just set in stone. They got the 2.5% to 3%, whether they did a good job or not. There was no conversation around it. So you had real estate agents go get a real estate license, start transacting. Now they're going to have to join the world of everybody else out there that has to actually bring the value, show the value, and earn the value. And
okay,
let
me ask a couple questions real fast before we get too deep into this. The lawsuit it's done. They lost, right? They've been awarded the whatever. Now we know there's going to be an appeal. There has to be a freaking appeal.
I don't think there's going to be.
I think there's going to be.
I think they'll do it.
Here's
What
why.
makes you think that, Jerry? Why would there be an appeal?
Here's what they're saying they're going to appeal. I don't think they're going to appeal. Here's why. In order to appeal, they have to post a $1.78 billion bond, because that's the first portion of the damages. They have to post that bond. And this is not covered in any insurances because it's antitrust. So it's not covered under E&O. It's not covered under liability.
Would they need to do the whole bond or 10% of the bond like normal?
Everything I'm seeing is they have to pay the $1.78 billion bond to appeal. Okay, so
I'm glad I'm on here because I'm sitting here now out of my depth. Okay, this is what I've heard, and Aaron, we got to give you a chance to address this. I'm out of my depth currently. I'm learning stuff right now. Jerry always knows way more about this than anybody I know. Aaron, as of right now, it's probably going to be you and Jerry and Jamil know the most about this. So let me direct the questions for a little bit. We'll open it up.
Yeah. So a couple companies have already settled, and they settled prior to them being found liable. So
what does that mean, Aaron?
Meaning they said, okay,
are we talking about companies outside of NAR?
No. Yes. So Remax settled for $55 million, and House, which is a bunch of other companies that are under one umbrella, settled for $83.5 million.
Think about it
that sounds like a smart move on their part. Like, let's just settle. Let's move on.
The whole goal is to settle, because think about it. If you're the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorneys, if you try to force a $5.3 billion judgment, you're going to force them all into bankruptcy and nobody gets paid. So they've made it really clear that settling is the key here. And so the settlements we're going to see, like the Remax one and the others, we're going to see in the millions, not in the billions. But the whole goal is to settle. Now, here's why I don't think there's going to be appeal. The second reason why I don't think there's going to be appeal. The plaintiffs and these attorneys, they are determined to continue to sue NAR. So they can appeal, and there's just going to be more lawsuits. They're not going to stop with these lawsuits. And so NAR, at some point, NAR's just got to get their head around reform. Like, reform is coming. We're not winning this.
Yeah.
You got to throw in the towel.
Okay. Well, the challenge is that NAR brings in $300 million a year in dues.
Just in dues.
So the moment that switches, like, it's going to completely change the ecosystem, because NAR they own 90% of all the MLS systems. So what I'm aware of is, like, there was a rule, which was part of what happened here, where in order to enter a property into the multiple listing service, you had to offer out compensation of some sort. You had to.
Yeah, you had to.
And then before the verdict came out.
You're meaning to the buyer's agent?
Yes, you had to.
Yeah, buyer broker commission rule.
You couldn't enter into MLS otherwise. And
you couldn't even join the MLS unless you were a member of NAR, which means you're paying your dues. We're seeing now these brokerages are all leaving NAR. NAR is going to lose a lot of their revenue real quick.
Some of them are, yeah, like Redfin, they switched.
They pulled out.
Okay, so I have something to read to you that my wife sent over to me. I'm going to share it on the screen. I don't know if this is like getting my wife into trouble, but let me show something. I've got a little letter from the NAR CEO. Oh, for some reason my screen doesn't want to present this. That's kind of messed up. The freak, dude.
NAR's blocking you.
NAR's blocking this.
They're listening to the conversation. They blocked that.
There it goes. Here, I think it's going to pop up right here. Come on, baby. Be good to me. Nope, it doesn't. Dude, NAR is blocking me right now. The freak.
What does it say, though?
Okay, I'll read it out loud. It is a letter directly from the president, or maybe it's the CEO of NAR. And Jerry, it kind of goes against what you were saying. And I've been reading and listening about how NAR actually just laid over in this lawsuit, because what they were trying to do is they were trying to collect all the information from the opposing side and go, show us all your cards, and we're going to let you win. In fact, the case was only 11 days long. The jury came back in 4 hours. It was almost like the defense did not even fight. And so my understanding from, I talked to an attorney about this. He goes, oh, it's genius. What you're doing is you're getting all the information. They're having to show all their cards, everything that they have.
But they would have done that in discovery anyways, though.
Yeah, but I don't understand that, because the cards have been out forever. Like, I've been doing videos about this for 2 years now with all the other lawsuits that never really went anywhere. I mean, I don't know what new arguments there are.
Let me read this.
Yeah, read it.
Says, okay, so this is directly from the president of NAR, Tracy Casper. Okay. She says, update in the case of Burnett versus NAR. I have an important litigation update. After an 11-day trial in the case of Burnett versus NAR, the 8-person jury in Kansas City came back Tuesday and found the National Associated Realtors and other corporate defendants liable in the case. This matter is not close to being final. We will appeal the liability finding because we stand by the fact that NAR rules serve the best interests of consumers, support. NAR was formed 100 years ago because there was a need for a higher level of ethical practice. We should all be proud that realtors continue to serve in that role. I know our mission. I'm grateful for the NAR staff and our 1.5 million members who work to serve our clients every day. We have an important share. Anyway, they are specifically saying, Jerry, they plan to appeal.
I'll bet you you'll see more of these settlements in the next 30 days. That's my prediction, is they're going to settle.
You think not more settlements with NAR, but you're talking about outside of NAR settlements.
Even I don't know what NAR. Yeah, maybe I don't know what NAR is going to do, but all of the copycat lawsuits are now open. Like there's new lawsuits filed, all joining this class action suit.
Same day that the verdict came out, they filed lawsuits against Compass, EXP, like all these other companies.
So NAR's going to keep fighting these lawsuits with everybody and anybody? Like, everybody's jumping in.
Aaron, what's your thoughts on this? Jerry thinks that no, they're not going to appeal. The NAR president says they are. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think they're, with a high degree of probability, they will appeal. I think it will change. I think the way we enter information into the MLS system will change. It's already starting to change. MLS systems, NAR changed their participation rule, and they said now you can offer $0 instead of $1 at a minimum. MLS systems are starting to change. So what I think is very interesting is as a listing agent, as I'm hearing you guys have this conversation and what will happen with like buy sides, yeah, buyer's agents haven't had to negotiate their fee. Listing agents have, though. So 80% of my business, 80% of the 2,000 homes I sold were listings sold. So that's a conversation we were having all the time about how to demonstrate value. Now, what part of what we would say to people, which is still true, it's no different. It's like, look, you know, what I'm aware of is the professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property in terms of what we offer out to another agent if they can find us a buyer that is ready, willing, and able to purchase, because agents do not control what people buy, but they do have influence over what they see. So we'll go over the options that you have because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. One option is we offer out what's customary, whatever is customary in your geographic area. The logic behind that strategy is we broaden the exposure and we increase the chances we get more people to look at it, which will ultimately end up with you getting the most and doing it quickly and efficiently. The second strategy is we offer out something less. In doing so, we could end up limiting the exposure. We could ultimately end up with you getting less offers and ultimately netting less. Now,
Aaron, this is you speaking to your listing client, correct?
Yes, a seller. Now, what's true though is the only thing that's going to change now is we could say to them like, hey, this is just future casting. What I'm aware of is that right now the buyer's agents, because of some changes that have been made, they may have to negotiate a portion of their fee with their buyer.
Their client, yeah.
I'm curious, if we made that negotiation easier for them, do you think it would increase the probability that they would show and sell our home?
Yep.
And then be quiet, because
Mhm.
people don't do what you want them to do. They do what they self-discover. So what I'm aware of is, yes, will the practical kind of legal structure of how information, because this is all about data. That's all this is about. Will the data and the way it's inputted change? Yes. Will who compensates who change? But I'm also where we have a whole like generation of people that are accustomed to things being done one way. You think that's going to change like this? No. That will take time to like push through a system. But for agents that know how to demonstrate value and also offer a menu of options pace. So option one, let's say, is at, you know, a certain fee, whatever that fee is, and you get basic shit for that. Option two is you get basic plus you get Matterport,
Wow.
you get videos, you get this, you get that. Option three is a guaranteed sale. The guaranteed
Are agents currently doing that, Aaron?
No, but they need to be. And they need to start thinking. This is what I've been coaching our, you know, high-level clients on. You need to start thinking that way and providing a menu of options, because that's how consumers are used to making decisions. When you guys go somewhere, you're like, hey, what's the cheap shit? What's the middle stuff? What's expensive?
Mm-hmm.
And
There's
with
been sorry, Aaron. Go.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if it's expensive and it adds value, it saves me time, or I can do it quickly and efficiently. Like if I have the resources, I'll do it. So offering that menu and the guaranteed sale is like, look, not only do you get the basic, but you also get Matterport, you get this. Guaranteed is we stage it. We pay for the appraisal. We pay for the inspection, and we'll give you $1,000 towards whatever comes up in the inspection, right? So we do things. Now I give you a choice. And then I look at the home seller and I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know you shared with me that you have to be in Colorado in the next 60 days, which means we have to be under contract in the next 30 to 45 because it takes 30 days to close. So what I'm aware of is I'm going to present you with these options. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. There's basic, there's middle, and there's guaranteed. Here's what the guarantee is. And Mrs. Seller's going to look at Mr. Seller and be like, honey, we got to get to Colorado. We should do the guaranteed. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And that'll be at a higher fee. So agents are just going to have to.
Aaron, are you thinking the higher fee is going to be higher than the current 3% that a listing agent will typically take? You think it'll even be more than that now?
Well, let's say that a portion of, because remember, if the buyer's agents are going to have to negotiate, let's say a portion, if not all of their fee. If let's say an agent is between 1% and 3% on the listing side, but if we offer something that is higher than that, we can offer out something on the other side, plus do all of these other things, which will increase the probability that people will want to show and sell the property.
Do you think that this will, I'm not a licensed agent, and thank goodness I'm not. I just don't have the personality for it. But I look at the industry and I go, why do I need a buyer's agent? Now, I know what buyer's agents bring to the table. I watch the therapy they give their clients. They're walking these clients through the largest decision they've ever made in their entire life. I get why buyer's agents are here and the value they provide. However, sellers don't. Okay. Now I look at sellers, and sellers don't even respect a lot of agents. If an agent spoke to me like that, Aaron, just so you know, I would respect the hell out of you and I would hire you in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. Most agents don't speak like that. And nor do most listing agents talk about how buyer's agents are so vitally important, because they're the ones that are bringing that buyer to the table, right? Listing agents want to take the credit for the house selling.
Yeah.
Do you think that this change and this new mindset that's going to be coming out might take 2 years, might take 8 years, whatever it is? Do you think that it, in a lot of ways, will eradicate a buyer's agent's need to be in this transaction? And do you think that there will be such thing as buyers going directly to a listing agent without a buyer's agent representation?
I think that's going to happen.
I mean, I think that'll happen. It happens now. Like you guys, from 2020 to 2021, I had people delivering pies at my office to try to get offers accepted. I had people calling me like, 15 times a day and texting me and sending flowers and shit just to get their offers accepted.
You're welcome.
It happens now, but it's interesting
that was something Jamil was teaching all his people to go. They bought pie stores, bro. They flat out buy pie stores. So
I know, but do you know what's interesting about that? I had these mixed feelings about it, because in any other industry, like if I tried to do something to get you to do what I want, it's called a bribe. It's like it puts agents in a very precarious situation where they are desperate, like most of them.
I mean,
right?
it's just pie, bro.
No, here's what I mean. You know what they do?
Right,
They write.
pie.
Here's what they do. They start with pie, but then they're like, "Hey, I
I
will
start with pie.
Then they're taking you to the games
Oh,
and they're
fucking
taking
get
you
no."
out.
And then you know what they're saying? I'll give you the other side and blah blah blah. You got multiple offers, and now as an agent, the flesh is weak. So you have all these offers. You got
Yep.
one that's going to pay you a bunch more money.
That's what we do.
I
To
know,
do
but then you gotta
agency
be
is
in-
the-
Flesh is
the
weak.
key to the
I like how
kingdom.
Aaron drops the biblical references. I
It
love
puts
that.
it puts an agent in this very precarious, and then everybody gets mad at the listing agent. Well, it's like, bro, like people are throwing money at them, and you expect them to be super ethical, like super on point when somebody's trying to throw an extra
Yeah,
15,
yeah.
20,000
Jerry,
bucks at them?
Jerry, what are your thoughts on the buyer's agent, and where does this leave the buyer's agent over the next several years?
Well, I think what's interesting is everybody's wanting to know, okay, well, if the buyer is responsible for the buyer's agent, how is that going to play out? Because
Well, dude,
now-
how does the buyer afford that? Like, especially
right.
an
So there's a-
FHA
Well,
buyer. I look at an
their offer just
FHA
gets
buyer. I'm like,
lower,
how
that's
does
all.
an FHA buyer afford a buyer's agent? They don't.
Yeah, there's a couple ideas that everyone's kicking around. One would be that it's rolled into the loan. In fact, there's already talk with Fannie and Freddie about doing that. Second thing, though, is going to be almost like we do seller concessions. So buyer has their commission that they owe the buyer's agent, but then they ask the seller to give a concession in the amount of the commission owed, and then it's paid that way.
What is
So
that?
it's still separated, but it's paid as a concession from the seller at closing. So it's not
So it's
coming
still
out.
coming from the seller.
I mean, we do that every day, seller concessions. Well, no, it's the seller's just giving it as a credit to then for the buyer to then have the funds to pay it at closing.
You know, on the FHA side of things, if Fannie Freddie rolled that into the loan, that makes a lot of freaking sense, right? Because I look at when this was all coming out, my wife she shared a video. My wife loves Jerry, I think, more than she loves me, but she sends me a Jerry YouTube video. And she's like, look at Jerry, you know, because you did a video maybe a year and a half ago that she shared with me. I know you've been doing this for a couple of years, but she shares this video to me. And I go, this is going to kill the buyer's agent. She's like, right. Like none of my buyers I've ever represented could have ever afforded to pay for me. Now, she's also going to a specific demographic, right? My wife represents me. So she just through the flips and the listings and the stuff that we have going on, my wife is just my in-house agent. So she's a top 1% agent without really having to go out and look for business. But because of her exposure, she gets people that come to her kind of by default, right? And the people that come to her by default, I think, are the FHA buyers and those types of things. So she's like, it would eradicate my buyer's ability to go and afford these houses. So a loan roll in makes a lot of sense. Aaron, what are your thoughts on like FHA buyers? Is there anything else that you've heard kicking around how a buyer's agent?
No, I mean, I've heard the same thing about it rolling in. I think it'll be interesting with regards to appraisals. If you roll
there's
it
no
into
way.
the loan.
You're going to get people in more debt to pay buyer's agents.
Yeah, and I mean,
tricky.
here's I think the other thing that the crux of what's going on here too is there's an argument to be made with like the reason why we have huge booms and busts in the United States is because our flexibility and lending standards. Like people who barely can bring money to closing probably shouldn't buy a house. Like,
Yeah.
And I know people don't like to hear that, but that's really what's really
Listen,
true, right?
Sellers are going to pay buyers agents. They're going to.
Yeah.
In rough or flat markets, I am telling you, they will put out as much as possible to get somebody to buy their house. If it's a hot market, maybe not. We had this company Assist to Sell, Aaron, and they had 12 other different versions of it, but they had that whole menu of these are the services you get, and this is what you get, and you can pay a certain amount, and it's much less than 6%. And they did awesome in 2007 and 8. Middle of 2008, they went bankrupt.
Hey, look at Redfin.
That's the fact.
Look at Redfin. So
Of
that
course.
model, when you salary agents and you give away all of these percentage points, it works in a rock star market. When revenue goes down, they just switch to having their agents be commissioned now. So what I think you're right, Brent, that people will pay just like we all do. Guys, nobody gives a shit that these are $1,000.
No.
Nobody. You know why? Because it's so valuable. And
Mhm.
for most people, their home purchase is the absolute largest transaction they will ever do in their whole life. So they want us involved. They just perhaps how we're involved, how we get compensated to be involved. That's what's up for debate and change.
Listen, most people don't want to negotiate. Most most Americans do not want to go and negotiate with some seller or some agent. It's like negotiating with an attorney unrepresented in their mind, in a normal consumer's mind, going there and just starting to negotiate with this other agent that represents somebody else. You want somebody on your side. I don't think that this is going to affect it as much as people think. I mean, it obviously was kind of, the way that it was structured was goofy and old, but I'm telling you, I don't think it's going to change what sellers are going to do when they put money out there to get buyers to buy their house.
I think if we had this situation again in 2020, going through COVID, I think buyers agents would be completely out of business. I think that I think they would have negotiated buyers agents commissions to 0.5 point.
Well, I would propose, Pace, that during that time, they did almost go out of business because the guys like me crushed it. They had to submit 55 offers to get one accepted.
Yeah, that's true. So
their revenue went down dramatically because the truth is, and here's the other truth that people don't like, it's not that skilled of an activity. Truthfully, it's less skilled than listing property in high volume. So if you look at this from a 30,000 foot view, all of these systems, MLS, Zillow, Redfin, do you know what they all need like oxygen to breathe that without it, they die immediately?
Humans.
Data.
Listings.
Data. Listings are data. They need data. Without it, they die. So if I'm a prodigious provider of data, I will continue to be disproportionately rewarded for my efforts. Does the system need buyer's agents? Not as much. It needs them, but not as much. Now, what it will force people to do, in my opinion, is the agents that work on the buy side have to add more value. Tangible value. So look, if you list and sell with me, guess what? You get to use my moving truck for free. If you list and sell with me, I will stage your home for free. If you list and sell with me, then I own an Airbnb. And if you need a place to stay in between, I'll let you stay there for a week, up to 2 weeks for free until you like real value, not like I'm worth it. Not
I
like
I will answer my phone on Sundays.
Yeah, like that's dumb. Like people say to me, they're like, oh, I asked them, I'm like, what's your competitive advantage? They're like, I'm honest. I'm like, you're stupid. like everybody's going to say that. That's like dumb. And what Jack Welch said is if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. So what's happening is this is forcing, because look, a second level consequence is brokerage. A third level consequence is the consumer. Truthfully, I think the consumer wins. One, because they get less agents, which means more productivity per agent, which means more skill. There's no reason that the average per agent productivity in the country is 4 homes all year long. The average agent makes $72,000 a year. The average manager at Taco Bell makes 70. That's what's true. There's no reason that should be the case. And the reason is because it's such a low barrier to entry. But guess what? You know why it's a low barrier to entry? Because we need those fees at NAR, brother. That's why we got to make it super easy for everybody to become agents. Because in my opinion, you should have to do like 50 deals a year to be called an agent. And then maybe like 20 deals a year to be like a junior associate.
People have to go to college for 4 years to get a $60,000 a year job, right? And then they have to work up and work up and work up. They have to prove themselves. And then you put somebody through $1,000 course. They don't know how to comp. They don't know how to sell.
Yeah, I
mean,
they don't
Aaron,
know the laws. Let me ask you this.
They don't know how to fill out paperwork. And then they're going and representing sellers on their largest asset.
Well, not only representing them, but called the fiduciary in that transaction. And I'm
crazy.
It drives me wild to hear, real estate agents are being given that responsibility of being the fiduciary. And for those of you that don't understand what a fiduciary is, that means where you have the legal obligation to serve your client's best interests above all. How are you supposed to serve your client's best interest above all when you haven't even learned how to value property in your licensing school? How many agents have you talked to, Aaron, that learned how to comp when they were getting their license?
0, because it's not part of the equation. Again,
how does not understanding how to value a property how does that disqualify or not be something that should qualify you to be a fiduciary?
Well, here's what I would take it one step further, Jamil.
Yeah.
65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, which means 65% of all agents live paycheck to paycheck. How are you possibly qualified to have any financial conversation with anybody about anything? You're not. So what I think is true is that, again, the consumer wins. You know what they get? They get less agents, which means better agents who know what they're doing. Transaction volume's higher. They have more experience. They're more skilled in multiple facets. And they also get potentially at a less price.
Okay, so here's a good question. Jerry, I'll start you off on this one. let's say I'm an agent, right? I'm one of the 60,000 agents that are leaving the industry this year. And next year will probably be closer to 100,000 agents that will leave the industry. Instead of leaving the industry as an agent, what should I be doing maybe to compete? Is it going after creative finance deals? Is it going after wholesale opportunities? What should I be doing to compete?
I mean, I think number one is agents. I think we're going to naturally see a real shift in the relationship between agent and investor. And this is probably because we're investors, so we're most interested in this part of the dynamic. But I think we're going to see a big shift from this animosity between agent investor to a collaboration between agent investor, because now that agent has to now earn their value. And who better than, I mean, we all believe this. I heard you just talking about this, Pace. We all believe this. For an agent, an investor should be your number one client because they're repeat buyers. I mean, like, why are agents not working more closely with investors? I think we're going to see that dynamic shift drastically for the top agents. Now, I think that number is going to be huge, the fallout. I think attrition is going to be 20 to 40% of agents are going to go away in the next 24 months.
So you're thinking out of the 1.6 million agents we have, we're going to lose roughly 500,000 in the next 24 months.
I believe so, because they're not going to innovate. They're not going to learn sales skills. They're not going to learn what it takes to implement now in a new emerging way. I'm talking buyer's agents, right? But I think the ones that are going to really rise to the top are going to be very investor friendly, and they're going to do more than just write contracts. They're going to be, like Aaron was saying, a bunch of things. I'm thinking of things like, you know, help do your walkthroughs, help create your designs if you're a flipper, maybe help do scopes of work or find solutions to things. There's so many more value add things that agents can do. I naturally do this with the agents I work with. I ask them to assist in a lot more things, and I'll keep using you as my agent, right? So I think we're going to see an emergence of a more friendly investor and agent, because again, they're no longer going to be, if this goes through the way it's all playing out, they're no longer going to get preset commissions without having to earn it. So now,
Jamil, what do you have to add to that, brother?
I want to add to that, and I think Jerry's right. You know, when you look at the service that your wife or my sister provide as a real estate agent, right? Your wife, Pace, she goes above and beyond when she's working with a client. She's doing way more than just listing a property or driving Miss Daisy. She's doing a ton of work. She's helping with resources, vendors. My sister will help clients renovate a property in order to help them sell it. I mean, the amount of work that agents were going to have to be capable of doing is absolutely going to change. And I think Aaron hits the nail on the head there as well. You're not just going to get a mediocre at best. You're not going to get a mediocre at best real estate agent. You're going to get the cream of the cream, the cream of the crop, or you're not going to work with that person. I think he's 100% right. We're going to have really good people, or they're not going to be in the market.
Aaron, I've got two questions for you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Question number 2 is a little bit longer. This one's just really, really quick. What do you feel, or where do you feel this animosity comes from between agents? And I'm not talking about the Aarons and the Monique Walkers of the world, because I work with real estate agents that become my very best friends. They look out for deals for me. Jerry and I fly up to Montana a couple of months ago, and Jerry and I spend 3 days with an agent. They're our best friends. We go on double dates. I'm not talking about the 5% of the producers that are actually doing the work and they understand it. Maybe it's even less than 5% that are like friendly with real estate investors, but I'm not talking about those. Throw those agents out of this question. Where does the animosity come from, at least on your side?
Yeah.
Between the Capulets and the Montagues, which is the agents and the real estate investors.
I got the Shakespearean reference. So, I think it's twofold. One is my life dramatically changed when I stopped looking at people as competitors, and instead I looked at them as collaborators. And I believe that collaboration is the new currency. So, I think that, I was just on Ryan Pineda's podcast. He's like, I'm talking to an agent. It's like, what if I said that every time I hopped on a call? It's a fucking wholesaler. Like, these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, why do you need to do that? Like, there's no reason to do that, right?
Don't. Yep.
So I think it's ego, and I think it's like just I think what's also true And here's what's also true. There's a very interesting friction. So there were multiple times where because I would do 50 to 60 probates a year out of 150 to 180 transactions a year, right? There were multiple times in those instances where an investor made an offer of 200. I get involved. The offer goes up to 250. And I'm like, look, if you don't do a fucking thing, we'll get $350,000 all day long. You won't have to do anything. And we would. So there was there was a competitive environment. And I know investors here locally were like, shit, Aaron's on the case. Like, if that's what's going to happen, I'm probably not going to, right? I was going to give them a reason to put it on the open market instead of, just kind of wholesaling it or letting an investor buy it. So I think that there's a legitimate reason for the friction because it's a competitive thing. But I also think that there's just for some reason, because both, everybody over at Ryan's team, they all started off as agents. I'm like, so why are you shitting on them, bro? You started off that way, bro. Why is that a bad thing?
I want to address that real quick because I agree with you entirely. But I also think there's another layer to it. And the other layer is both sides are highly uneducated, right? Wholesalers are a very low barrier of entry. There is no barrier to entry. Yeah. It's, you could even have an Android and crush it. Forget about even having $1,000 iPhone, right? So there's very little barrier to entry. What I run into on the wholesale side, I used to be primarily a wholesaler. Then I evolved into now I'm 85% of what I touch, I buy and hold. I keep everything. And I've evolved. But I understand the world and of wholesale incredibly well. We still wholesale a little bit. But I ran into agents that would list properties way over what they were worth, not educating their sellers. And then we would come in and we would have to save that agent from losing that listing with creative finance or something else. But the first time I present an offer, let's say subject to or seller finance, it's amazing how little agents know about anything about real estate, right? It's crazy how a lot of buy and hold investors just actually know real estate, or 90% of it. I still don't know everything about real estate, but I feel like when I talk to an agent, I'm like, how have you been an agent for 15 years and you've never explained seller finance to a seller to the point where you won't even present my offer?
Yes.
And then what will happen is it will go expired. You will so blatantly, because of your ego, you won't present my seller finance offer, not because it's not a good offer for your client, but because you don't want to admit you don't know how. And the licensed professional talking to the non-licensed professional does not want to admit, I don't know what I'm doing. And they would rather go to the end of their 6-month listing, let it go expire. My team calls the expired listing and goes, hey, how'd you like the offer that the agent gave you before you fired them? And they go, we don't know what offer you're talking about. They never presented that to it. So there's a lot of that where I feel like there's just a lack of education. Maybe it's because of what you addressed earlier, which is the low barrier of entry to both people. And 95% of the people in the industry, like you said, are not earning the 5% at the very top. And so maybe it's the 95% of people are just lazy and bumping into each other and using their ego as a justification to basically bash the other side. Is that
I agree
really
with that
stupid
100%.
way of saying it?
Yeah. So I believe that, the 5% that you hang out with,
yeah,
it's because they are playing at a higher level, both intellectually and emotionally. So you're just dealing with, a high caliber human, much less whether they're a, agent or a wholesaler. So I think that that's completely accurate.
What are your, Jamil, Brent, Jerry, do you guys have anything to add to that of where the animosity comes from? Because knowing the source of it is important. I think for people that are just getting into the industry, you, as a new person, you don't want to just assume that you as a wholesaler are a piece of crap because an agent makes you feel that way. Or if you're an agent and a wholesaler says something like, oh, I got to talk to a freaking agent right now. You don't want to feel like an agent that is a dirtbag just because a real estate investor made you feel that. Do you feel like this is coming from somewhere other than where Aaron and I have already hit?
What do you think?
Listen, I love the collaboration over competition, but it's also competition. So listen, this is a free market, right? It just depends on what's best for the property owner. If the property owner wants speed and convenience and doesn't want to clean it up and wants a cash offer to close in a week or 10 days, then that's where we step in. If they want to get full market value and they want to be able to list it and get as many offers as possible, they go with an agent. So it doesn't matter what we want. It matters what the sellers want. And if the sellers want speed and convenience, they go with us. If they want to get more price and it's a little bit more inconvenient, great. But you will trade their speed, convenience, and price. The sellers only get two. They only get two. Which two do they want? If they want speed and convenience, they're going to have to be lower on price. If they want to be inconvenienced and take a little bit of time, then and get that higher price, then that's what's going to happen. So
Aaron, second question. Here's my second question. Second question is, are you, because you're a sales trainer, obviously. You're perfect for this. Are you training your agents to now go, all right, we're going to offer our clients, our sellers, creative finance, a cash offer for a wholesale offer or a fix and flipper, listing, a this, a that, all of those types of things? Or are you guys primarily going in and saying, we're trying to get the listing and just throw it on the MLS?
No. So we're thinking multiple different, again, a menu of choices. So what was interesting is as I'm hearing, Brent describe that, well, the collaboration would be, hey, bro, if they just want retail, instead of you because it goes both ways, guys.
Yeah.
Instead of you having your sister's niece be the agent, not just bring me deals, but I'm going to help you out. If they want retail, here you go, bro. Here's retail. Then guess what? If they want wholesale or they want a cash offer, hey, bro, I'll bring it to you. Maybe we could work out, an equity position or, whatever.
Can I pause you for a second there? I just want to address, because I think we went through that a little bit too fast. That is such a great point. What you're referencing, Aaron, is something I learned from Jerry years ago. As a wholesaler, I'm asking all these agents for deals. And very rarely was I smart enough in the very first year of my business as a wholesaler, because I did 100 deals through in my first year, and I sold them basically to Jamil. He co-wholesaled them for me because I didn't have a buyer's list at the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I saw a video of Jerry Norton going, hey, are you throwing away your listing opportunities? Here's what I did, Aaron. I just knew right in the very beginning, I knew this person's better fit for an agent. And so I just left it alone stupidly. I just go find, I told the sellers, just call your agent.
Yeah.
Instead of me going, oh crap, Jerry has an amazing video about this, to go to the agents that I'm trying to ask for business from. And stupidly, it's so obvious, just reciprocate what you're asking them to do.
Yeah. And that goes back to if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. And I think most people play business like it's a finite game. It's even in our language. We're we got to crush it and beat the competition and crush these wholesalers.
Dominate.
Dominate.
Right? You're going to win. I'm going to win. You're going to lose. It has to be that way.
Yeah. And some people, the majority of the world, that's their mental map of the world. Yeah. And what I'm aware of is business is an infinite game, meaning it was played long before the Jamils and the Brents and the Pace Morbys and the Aarons, and it'll be played long after we're done playing it. So the goal and objective of infinite games is to keep playing, number one, provided that you have the means and the ability. Means could be time, it could be health, it could be money, and the willingness, I still want to play, and it's to equip other players to play. That's really the whole goal. It's not to beat people into the dirt. So I think, again, once you start to view people as collaborators and come from a spirit of I'm not trying to keep every damn nickel that's on the table to myself, there'll be way more than enough opportunities, and we can pass between each other. But the truth, when you look at these big tech companies that are pushing into our space, guys, they tried to get into the flipping business. Yeah. And Zillow lost $750 million doing it. Then what they tried to do is they offer cash offers just like you guys do. Why are they doing that? You know why? Because they know 5% of the time they'll accept the cash offer. The other 95%, they have leads that they sell back to agents for 35%.
And they sell it to the hedge funds.
Then they take their 7,000, which nobody talked about. They took 7,000 homes, instead of putting them back on the market. If they actually cared about inventory and people's lives, you know what they did? They sold it to a hedge fund. Boop.
Yep.
See you later.
Pace, I wanted to just go back real quick and button up that question you asked. Where does the animosity come from between real estate agents and investors? I think that, what Aaron's been talking about now, and, a little bit of what Brent's been talking about, and yourself and Jerry, even this concept of there being a competition between real estate agents and investors, meaning if a homeowner does a deal with an investor, that's going to cut the agent out. And I think that agents got this idea in their head that, look, these real estate investors are too sophisticated to want to use my services. They're not going to want me involved in the deal because they know how to do the contract. They know all the conditions. They know about the contingencies. They know how not to lose their earnest money. They understand the game. So there's no place for me in the deal when I'm dealing with an investor, which is why I don't like investors, because if they buy the house, I don't get the listing. And so the attitude is a scarcity mindset that says if they buy, I lose. And that's what's been the animosity. That's been the friction all the way, because the moment where a real estate agent can find that, no, you don't lose, because this is how you still fit into the equation when we collaborate, which is what Aaron is talking about, this collaboration concept of, which is what you've seen Monique and I do for a decade, right? We've collaborated, and every deal that we do together, she makes more money on than she does if she was going to sell. For Aaron, let me just really quickly give you the breakdown of how I work with Monique. Monique will bring a listing to me. Before she goes on any listing appointment, she sends me the address, and she asks me for my cash buy price. So I give it to her. She goes into her listing appointment and she says, okay, here's the deal. I've got a multitude of options for you. I've got a cash offer from my investor, and he will pay me the commission. You'll get a net price to you. I'm not even going to be representing you in that situation. I'm going to represent him, and he's going to buy it, and he'll pay me a commission. Option 2, I can show you exactly what you need to do this house to get it financeable and put it on the market. Option 3, I can show you what you need to do to take this all the way to ARV, or give this a complete retail renovation so you can maximize the amount of money that you can make on this house. That's going to take a little bit of risk. It's going to take investment, but it's going to generate you the most money for your deal. Here are your options. Which will you take? 10% of the time they choose option 1, where I'm the buyer. 10% of the time they choose me, right? And those are the only 10% where I'm actually really should be in the deal anyways, because it wouldn't make sense if it was a prettier house or another kind of deal. So that collaborative effect that her and I have with each other give the seller all the options they need under the rainbow. And now that seller gets to make an educated decision to say, I'm going to choose speed and convenience, or I'm going to take a little bit of risk and do some work and make a little bit more, or I'm going to go balls to the wall and be HGTV today, and I'm going to make $100,000 more on this house than I should have in the first place. That's what agents should be doing. They should be coming to their sellers with the whole host of options.
I agree. Multiple options. And what popped into my head, Jamil, as I hear you talking, like, instead of having a relationship with an investor, what they're doing is they're going to Open Door, and Open Door is making the cash offer.
Yep.
So it's like, what would make more sense is to have a relationship with a local investor that you can do that with. And again, for it to be reciprocated, for it to go back and forth in terms of opportunities, that there's more than enough money on the table. And that would make sense. The other thing that popped into my head, Pace, you know what's really interesting is that all of because wholesalers have coaching conventions and agents, they never hang out together.
I know,
Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting.
There's no like gathering of wholesalers and investors, and or let's say like investors and real estate agents, and we just call it like real estate. They don't do it. And that's part of also the animosity, Jamil, because you're never bumping into them or hanging out with them. You're never spending time with them. Like, I don't know who the other person on the other end who sends me automated emails on every single listing that I have.
Have you guys ever disliked somebody for whatever stupid human reason, and then you run into them in real life and you're like, dude, you're like, I like you. You're freaking cool, dude.
Yeah.
Totally. And the older you get, you realize that's like everybody for the most part, especially high performers. Like I've never disliked a high performer, because I'm like, I know no matter how big of a butthole you are on social media, I'm going to meet you and I'm going to be like, you're freaking cool, dude. I like you. Jerry, I've got a question for you, brother. I am a wholesaler and I want to reciprocate to these agents. How can I do that if I'm only doing direct to agent as my lead source? Right? Because what my value was, I was direct to seller, right? So Aaron, in our industry, we say direct to seller, direct to agent, right? Jamil teaches a lot of direct to agent. I did all direct to seller for my first 7 years in the business. I was doing billboards, TV, We Buy Ugly Houses.
Yeah.
I owned one of those territories for 3 years, and that's how I got, actually 4 years. I owned Phoenix area. So it was radio, TV, blah, 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 all the things. And I sold my franchise after I learned how to generate leads from Brent Daniels, how to go out and go, I don't need that franchise model anymore. I'm going to go out and just do my own thing direct to seller. So we built a door knocking team. We did that for a couple of years until COVID hit. We were doing 20 wholesale deals a month just out of door knocking foreclosures. So being direct to seller, Jerry, I have that amazing opportunity to go to my 5 to 10 agents that I love doing business with and going, hey guys, I'm going to do a round table, a round robin type of opportunity, because I can't just have one relationship with one agent in order for me to get enough wholesale deals to scale. So I'm going to do kind of a round robin type of thing. And that's what I would do with my direct to seller model. Is there a way? Because I know you talk a lot about agent, two-sided relationships, all these things. You're the guy when it comes to how to structure the agent relationship in terms of compensation. Do I have an advantage if I'm direct to agent, or do I need to be direct to seller in order to bring that advantage to an agent in terms of the reciprocation?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating question. There's a part of this whole thing that, as a direct to agent investor, I've got some concerns about a model that I've done really, really well with. I know Jamil teaches this as well, which is the double dip strategy known as dual agency. So dual agency is when the agent can represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction. Well, if the DOJ is very clear about separation of representation, then I think we might see dual agency go away. It's already banned in, I think, 12 states. I think we're going to see where that's going to become a little trickier, where same agent representing buyer and seller, just to keep that separation more clear. So what does that mean for me? It means that model's worked really, really well for 20 years. I mean, I've done it so well for such a long time. Am I worried about it? Not at all, because everything's going to be innovative now. So what's going to be the new way that we work together? How do we transact together? How do we create these relationships? I'm not real sure yet how that's all going to emerge, but I know one thing. For me, I see the value in what an agent does, because an agent is out there talking to these sellers. So if I can create these relationships with these agents, they're going to run across leads. They're going to bird dog for me. They're going to be a huge source of lead flow. And now I just got to get creative on how do I work with these agents when it comes to acquisition, and then how do I work with agents when it comes to disposition. So we do a lot of that too. I sell quite a bit of real estate with agents, either through, lots of different ways, but novations, and we list a lot. And so I want to create these relationships with all the agents on both buy and sell. And how do we work together? What values do you want to bring? Now it's going to be a lot more of like, let's get creative here, because we're kind of getting away from traditional commission structure. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun.
Speaking about getting creative, I immediately thought, as you were speaking, you were talking about, here you are doing a double dip strategy. The DOJ says, hey, we can't have the agent doing the same thing. Aaron, how do you feel about, as an agent, before I ask the question, how do you feel about double dip strategy? You like it, or you try and stay away from it?
I mean, again, obviously you get paid more money. So, it's exciting when that happens. I think where it becomes sticky is when people try to use that as a mechanism to influence the agent on which offer to take. That's where it gets interesting, because then you're appealing to the
DOJ is stepping in.
Yeah, well, you're trying to appeal to the lesser angels of people's nature, which is like when there's money on the table.
But has the DOJ gotten involved on dual agency at the moment, or just no? They haven't. They're not at all commenting on that. They're just commenting on who's paying.
But you said it's illegal in 12 states.
I'm speculating that's on the chopping block next.
Yeah,
but it's illegal in 12 states for an agent to represent both sides.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a way? Here's my question.
It still happens. Like I do it in Florida and Texas. Those are both non-dual agency states. I do it every single day in those states. It's just not dual agency. It's transaction broker, where they don't represent either party.
Wait, it's a workaround. It's still done.
So that's actually what my question was. I was going to say, it's the same thing in creative finance. They come up with something. We go, okay, well, you don't want us to transfer the deed. No problem. I'll do a contract for deed or a land contract. I'll do something else. Right. There's always a workaround. So on the dual agency, on the dual agency side, there is a workaround there where an agent can still make money. I mean, I look at the wholesale side, like Monique Walker getting Jamil to pay her instead of her representing the seller in that transaction. She says, hey, you go buy the deal, and then Jamil pays me.
Yeah.
And I pay her half my assignment fee, right? So Pace, you've been there when her and I are doing a deal.
We're driving in Texas, and you guys make $100,000 in 7 minutes as I'm driving. I'm like, this is what I get for driving. I can't work my cell phone.
But what you've done, Jamil, is you took traditional buyer's agent and you've created this unique role for them to thrive outside of this traditional like 3%. So that we're going to see that happen because buyer's agents are going to have to get creative.
I think this is what Aaron is primarily training people to do, right, Aaron?
Yeah, it's to provide multiple options. And really what he's done, he's doing remember where we said that they can do broad really well? Like tech companies, they can do broad better than anybody, better than anybody on this like call, right? What they can't do is hyper local. So what Jamil has done is he's created open doors offer program with one highly productive agent. So he knows only 10% of the time will the deals turn into deals, but if not, she's just going to list them. And that's what agents should be doing for themselves. So one of the things that I am telling people, there's a multiple pronged approach. One is that the riches are in the niches. Agents need to be death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living, like pulling lists the same way wholesalers do, getting really, if you want to get paid in the future, you need to live in the future. And what I mean by that is you get really good at something and then you create a brand around your name around that thing, right? Everybody on this call has done that. You guys are wholesalers, super good at it, investors, you're creating a brand around it. You'll get paid in perpetuity for that. And you're pushing media on it so more people know who you are. Okay. So they got to get a niche. The second is a cash offer.
I love that Aaron just said agents have got to pull lists as well. And in my mind, Aaron, in my mind, again, not an agent, I'm coming from the limited viewpoint. I don't ever see agents getting trained on pulling lists like probate, foreclosure, those types of things. And even when they pull a list of expired listings, their broker is telling them, go tell the seller that you're just a better listing agent and give them the same freaking opportunity as the previous agent. So you're telling them essentially what we as wholesale educators, Jerry, Jamil, Brent, are all teaching them. Go pull a list. You're just teaching.
In fact, here's what I would go so far as to say, if you're a buyer's agent right now and you're going to start pulling lists, you're going to start learning negotiation and sales skills because now you got to earn your value and show your value. Why would you not just go wholesale instead of being a buyer's agent? You're going to make 10 times more money.
Well, are there you're saying buyer's agent, but there are situations where the seller that you talk to just needs to list the property. So you're essentially saying you should either be a listing agent or a wholesaler.
Well, I don't understand. Are you guys saying that buyers agents commissions are going to go down?
Yeah,
because I totally disagree with that.
I mean, I don't know if I totally disagree, but I think with a high degree of probability, if buyers agents are going to have to negotiate a portion, if not all of their fee, guys, they're not that skilled and they don't add that much value overnight. So I think that the people, okay, so I think it's the Amazon effect. So the people that are like dominant, they have a hyper local presence, they have a ton of Google My Business reviews, all of that, and they add value, but not everybody can pay for fucking like one of my partners, Jose, he bought $250,000 of furniture. So he'll stage your home for free. Not everybody's like that. Nobody's going to do that, right? He bought a moving truck. Not everybody can do that. So they're either going to have to work for a team like that who can provide that value, or go work for Zillow. Like there's not going to be like very in between. The days of doing 4 to 10 deals a year are done.
What do you mean by working for Zillow?
So what I mean by that is that Zillow is very much so, and these online platforms are very much so gearing. So their entry into the transaction was a transaction fee. But then they started to push into ancillary services, because when you look at the brokerage business, brokers don't make any money. Their profit margins are 10 to 5%. You know how they make money? They own escrow companies, title companies. They give away the brokerage in order to get to the ancilleries. But what you're watching is these tech companies they recognize that agents don't want to spend money or prospect. So they're willing to pay They're willing to pay 35%, $5,000 for one lead. And they justify that because it's coming out of a $10,000 check. That's ridiculous. Right? So
that's why you're saying they're working for Zillow.
Right. And the biggest teams in the country right now, like keep this in mind. What Zillow's done is, and these Home Lights, Home Light raised $100 million before COVID. Their biggest backers, Google. I paid them like $50,000 in referral fees one year, and I pay my broker $16,000. How does that make sense? So what I'm aware of is that they're pushing into the space they get, and a really well-run team, guys, in real estate. I don't know what it is in wholesale, but in residential resale, a really well-run team is operating at 30% profit margins. So check this out.
And that you mean that's net to the team lead?
Net to the team lead. So they're doing 100, 200, 300 deals, dealing with all of the management, all the bullshit, all the paperwork. The lead provider is netting the same amount.
Yeah.
With none of the work. What they're doing is they're hiring technicians to do the actual work themselves. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the biggest teams in the country, like this is like the big secret, they all have Zillow Flex accounts. Like for the most part, not all of them, but a lot of them do.
What's a Zillow Flex account?
Where Zillow says, okay, we're going to give you preference. We're going to give you all the leads. We're going to be up your ass to make sure you're calling them all the time and all this other stuff. But you're going to pay us between 30 to 40% on all of your deals.
Once they close.
Once they close. Yeah. So like that's what people have used to scale and do like 1,000 units.
So Jerry, you made a comment. I want to wrap this up with your comment up. Your thought process is, okay, if you're an agent, you got licensed. Why go out and be an agent and practice if you're going to go out and do all this prospecting, which is what wholesalers and real estate investors are doing, right? We're going direct to seller. We're negotiating. We're going and buying house. I mean, 60% of my deals are direct to seller. Right? Like no agents involved. We're calling foreclosure. Thank goodness for agents that can't do their jobs, whether it's educating your seller before the listing that they're trying to oversell their property, or B, they just don't provide a service. Because for me as a buyer, my team calls expired listings after we've already talked to the agent. The agent doesn't do their job. Majority of my deals are coming from expired listings right now. So you're saying as an agent, why would I call those lists just to try and resell or list them? Why not try and wholesale them or buy them yourself? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, my point is the bar is going to drastically increase now if an agent now has to act like we already do as wholesalers. If they're running lists and prospecting and follow-ups and CRMs and marketing and sales and negotiating, they're going to learn. They have to learn all of that if they're going to survive and have multiple different ways of doing things. That's going to happen no matter what. The point I'm just making is, why do all of that to get a minimal percent listing on something when you could get the contract and assign it for $20,000? That's my point. Is you're actually acting. They're actually going to start acting more like wholesalers do, which is run a legit prospecting or marketing and sales business to be successful. They're going to have to.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with that. I think what's also true is that agents that's operating under the assumption that the only reason it makes sense to do something is because of money. So like what I'm also aware of is that agents, they serve a very important role like in society. Like they help the average person who has 95% of all of their wealth tied up into their house transact. Like they're very functional, right? And I think that agents that the consumer wants agents involved again. They just want them to be more skilled.
They do.
Maybe not want to pay them.
They've been proving that for the last decade, where we've been flooding them with all these options to not use an agent, and everyone's like, "We still want the agent."
Yeah. Everyone keeps picking. Like I would tell people when you call like for sale, I'm like, "Look, dude, if the internet was all it took to sell a home, then once the internet happened, all these flat fee companies would have put agents out of business, and that didn't happen. What happens is they go all out of business once the marketplace is not, like gangbusters." So I think I do agree 1,000% that agents have to become more savvy. They have to be better educated on finance. They have to be better educated on business. They have to be better educated on the skill of being able to sell property. So if the environment, like let's say the structure is not going to make it more difficult to become an agent, the market will. And that's exactly what's happening. The market is demanding more skills and that sort of thing. And then I think it's interesting because what you're really describing is, it circles back to our conversation. It's just a menu of options. So the agent could be like, look, I have a PACE in my back pocket, and hey, here's this offer. And then here's this, and here's this, and here's the menu of choices with regards to creative finance. And here's the menus of choices with regards to commissions. And then whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. And if you do that right, what will end up happening is they will say to you, well, Aaron, what do you think we should do?
Yeah.
And once they ask you that, now they're actually receptive to your response. Now it's incumbent upon me to do what's best in their best interest. Hey, you know what? I think that the cash offer is better for you. I think PACE is the guy. and I have a relationship with him and we get compensated accordingly, right? Or like, you know what? I think putting it on the open market makes the most sense, and here's why. Right? So that's what I think it'll end up.
Do you think that buyers agents are going to make less in a normal market? Because if I put my house on the market, Jamil puts his house on the market, he puts $1,000 out there for buyer broker, I put 3%. I feel like there's going to be more eyes on my house.
I think there's two questions there.
That's the law, though. You're not allowed to do that anymore. That's what's going away. You cannot.
If that happens,
you cannot dictate what the buyer's commission is going to be. The buyer has to go pre-negotiate that with their agent outside of the listing.
So the consumer cannot put out money for people to buy their house for a buyer's agent? Is that what we're saying?
They're saying they want to separate that. The seller no longer dictates what the buyer's commission is going to be. So that what you're saying, Brent, is why is the whole argument. Because
okay, hold on.
What if I want to?
Let's make sure this is clear.
What if I, as a consumer, want to pay a buyer's agent?
You want to incentivize them.
I want to incentivize them to sell my house because I have to sell my house.
That's what Aaron was talking about at the beginning of the show. He's saying, I go to my seller and I say, hey, let's talk about this. Here's the options, right? We can do what the market is dictating, which is, or always has dictated. Let's pay the buyer's agents because they're going to show more and blah, 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 blah. They can't I think all of that's going to happen. Here's my question. Are we saying that the listing is going to have it already predetermined of, hey, yes, we will pay your buyer's commission in this listing? Is that something they're getting rid of?
That's the whole thing they want to get rid of.
So the buyer's agent has to go to who to negotiate? The seller directly or to the buyer?
The buyer.
So I, as a consumer, can't
100% the buyer's losing commissions on this.
Yeah.
So me as a home seller cannot say, hey, I want to get every agent out there to come bring their buyers to me. That's what the government's going to say?
Yep. That's what they're trying to get rid of. Because
Aaron, is that your understanding?
Because think about it. What you're doing then is you're saying that's what's happening. We're saying I put this to the test. So I had a house in Georgia that I flipped. I put a 2% commission on the buyer side. I dictated as the seller 2%. Crickets. 30 days later, I put it at 3%. Tons of showings to sell it in a week. Yeah. So they want to stop that because what it's doing is it's forcing price fixing because now sellers want to sell. They're going to offer a commission. Everyone's going to play the game. That's what's been happening. They want to.
So what you're saying is that the listing is now not even going to have anything about commissions. So if I'm the buyer's agent, this is the way I understood it. I just want to make sure it's clear to the audience.
What?
I, as the buyer's agent, have to go to my buyer and say, I will represent you, but let's talk about what I'm going to get paid in this transaction.
And you'll have to do a formal presentation.
Before you even show a property, you're going to have to negotiate your commission with your buyer as a buyer's agent.
So in the
even
same
if me as a consumer want to pay a buyer's agent, okay. That's
because they're separating it. It's no longer, the seller's no longer paying the commission.
This is the whole entire thing. This is why Aaron and Jerry are both saying 500,000 agents will leave this industry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not even worried about the agents. I'm worried about me, the consumer. I'm worried about me in the marketplace. I'm worried about me selling my house in a bad market when nobody else wants to show it, but I put an incentive out to have agents come to buy my house.
Hold on.
And Brent, what you just said is NAR's argument.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Where they're like, look, this actually is better for the consumer because it's more efficient. It causes homes to sell quicker, like that whole thing, right? So we'll see how it shakes out.
But if anything on eBay, if I go put something on eBay, I can pay a sponsor fee to make sure that's seen at the top.
That's crazy. You pay Facebook to run ads, right? Like what are we talking about? So I would have to go out there and try to like network with other buyers agents.
So here's what's interesting:
as an owner of a property,
this already exists. This already exists, Brent, in other countries. So if you look at Australia,
in Puerto Rico, where I live, in Puerto Rico, where I live, there is no collaboration between commissions. So every single buyer's agent has to pre-negotiate their fee before they do a showing.
Yeah, but that's not the U.S. What country is Puerto Rico in?
That's normal.
This is America.
What country is Puerto Rico in, Jerry?
Huh?
So is
their
Puerto Rico.
territory.
Macau on the
self-governed.
Jamil tried to get him on that one. What I'm aware of is that like in Australia, that's how it is. You have to negotiate your fee with the seller and a marketing fee of like what you're going to do. They have an auction. Like it's a whole.
But guys, we have to make sure that we preface this, because we've got 700 people, almost 800 people watching this, and they're all about to have diarrhea. Okay, nothing is happening right now, guys.
No.
Nothing is happening right now. This isn't going to be a thing that you need to think about for the next 12 to 24 months.
No. I isn't. But
here's what I would suggest.
There's already settlements that have happened with like Redfin, so
there
this is already happening.
I think we're going to see
there's
massive
no legislation though
in the MLS systems. How they're posting and handling commissions. I think.
Okay, so we got to. Normally this podcast goes an hour and a half. I think we go another 15 minutes on this. But Aaron, let me ask you this: is this already happening? If Redfin and these other companies have done settlements, have they already gone about doing business this way, saying, "Okay, you got us.
No,
you're right."
No. So Remax, they settled, and House settled. Now, part of the House settlement is they had to change, because like brokerages can have like, hey, you can't list anything for less than this amount. They had to change in their documents.
Sure.
You can list it for whatever you want. So and NAR, before this whole thing happened, they changed their participation rule. So what you're going to see is MLS systems will go from you could offer $1, you had to offer at least $1, to now it's $0. Now, practically, unless there's legislation, the way that it's done, I think would be customary. And again, as Brent was saying, there's definitely market dynamics that if you're offering out, more, that will increase the probability that, you'll get your home sold. Now, I do think though, that leaders anticipate and everybody else reacts. So to what Jamil was saying is like, yeah, you probably not have to worry about this for a while. But what I am also aware of is wherever there's disruption, there's opportunity. Somebody's going to make a lot of money. So if we can start to mastermind and future cast and kind of say like, hey, what do I think with a good degree of probability will take place, then I can position myself accordingly and continue to get my unfair share.
Yeah, but going back to your question, Pace, of like, is buyer's agent commission going to go down? If you look at the rest of developed countries, their total commission split to sell real estate is like half of ours. It's like 3 or 3.5 or 4% combined. Okay, combined. We are the highest country in commission rate, and it's because the buyer's agent fee has been paid by the seller. So that's what's happened. Now, if that gets disrupted and we go to the same system where there's each representation.
Yeah, like in Canada where it's 2 beaver pelts and a loony.
Standard.
Everybody knows that.
So Brent, now that you know that, do you change your opinion of what you're saying?
Absolutely not. I think it's totally anti-American.
Yeah.
I think that I should have the right to be able to put out whatever commission I want for a professional to come in and bring a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to buy my house. 100%. That should not be regulated, that I can't pay a buyer's agent something.
That's just made me want to wear an American flag on my head.
But Brent, here's the argument, Brent. You don't represent the buyer. You're the seller.
I'm the seller.
Why are you paying the buyer's commission? The buyer,
because there are professionals that put food on their table and all day sit on the MLS hunting for listings for their clients to get in, set up a showing appointment, schedule everything, make sure that they get do their best to get their offer accepted, then walk those people through an inspection period, explain to them what a home warranty is, explain to them what's going on in an inspection, help them find the right lender and loan officer so that they get the best rate and the best experience and get that thing closed and continue a relationship with them forever so that they feel good about this decision. I mean, that's ridiculous.
All of that's the buyer's responsibility with their agent.
Yeah, but I understand that. All I'm saying is I shouldn't be restricted from paying somebody to bring somebody to my house to buy my house.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that's part of it, that they would say to you as a seller, like, hey, you can't offer some sort of compensation. Cause I agree. I think that's very like un-American. It's like telling somebody you can't sell something. It's like, what do you mean I can't sell? I can do whatever I want. Right. So, but I do think that the way that it's entered, I think it being mandatory, I think, that again, that's going to change. And I do think that if agents don't level up, particularly on the buy side, in terms of doing, like I did a formal listing presentation for a seller. and you would explain all the value, you'd give all the options, you handle objections and close. The same is going to be true on the buy side of doing a presentation. Here's what we offer. Here's, you know, the menu, and then here's what the compensation will be. Now, the seller's agent might offer us a portion. If they do, then that'll reduce that fee in some way. At the same time, here's what it is. That's how we work. Are you willing to proceed? And, you know, kind of take it from there.
I mean, buyer's agents don't do that now.
No,
No.
they don't
It's
have
like,
to.
hey, my cousin Susie sells houses. Call her.
Yeah.
Let's have her start sending us MLS drips of what houses we kind of like.
That's right.
And let's get a prequal.
No, truthfully, they're order takers, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
So this will change the dynamic, but maybe not necessarily the commission.
Right.
Because if they are really good at their job, like Brent is saying, two things are going to happen is what I'm hearing you say, Aaron. One, buyer's agents are going to step up to the freaking plate and do their job, right? And add
or
value.
go away.
Or go away. And that's where the $500,000, because somebody said in the comment, they go, people don't want to work. That is absolutely true,
100%.
which makes the 900 of us on here today have the unfair advantage because we all actually desire to work. We have this unfair advantage called desire that even if I had all the money in the world, I would still wake up today and try and learn something new. It's what we all desire to do. So we have that unfair advantage. Correct. So 500,000 people are going to leave the industry. Great. But the people that stay in the industry, one, they're going to have to learn how to bring more value. And then two, it sounds like the seller probably will still be able to come in and go, let's try and sell this thing really quick. Let's kick in 1 point towards the buyer's agent. And then that will reduce the commission, right?
It'll make it easier for them to, you know, perhaps.
I'm just saying
the buyer's agents are still going to have to present.
As wholesalers, as wholesalers, we will be complete. It will be a huge disruption if sellers can't put buyer brokers out there.
I agree with that.
Because I'm telling you, as a flipper, I'll put in a bad market when I was flipping in 2010, 11, 12, I was putting 5% commission for buyer brokers out there to get it out there, to get those properties sold. I was doing everything I could to get as many people to come into that property to buy it as possible. And if that affects the flipping, then that affects the cash buyers, which then affects the wholesalers. So this is how this all kind of gets weaved in together in Wholesale Hotline. This is a wholesale podcast, but I'm telling you, if that is the case, there's going to be it's going to be rough. It's going to be interesting.
Gentlemen, I've got to run. Aaron, this was a beautiful conversation. You guys keep going here, but I've got to take off.
We'll wrap it up. Aaron, we'll have you come back. This was absolutely a blast. Aaron, thank you so much. Jerry, we love you, bro. Even though you're over in, I don't know, you're in South America right now?
Puerto Rico.
He's in Puerto Rico.
The U.S. flag.
I know.
He's got it on his hat, Pace. Come on, man.
I know. I'm just teasing.
America.
Hey, guys, was this a blast tonight or what?
Amazing.
Everybody in the comments, give us some love.
Thank you, Aaron.
You crushed it tonight.
Thank
dude.
you,
This was
Aaron.
great.
Wholesale Hotline 194. We out.
We out of here, guys. Thank you so much. Aaron, we'll have you come back on. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Appreciate you, brother.
Just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?
I didn't say nothing.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Cool. I think we should use the one where Jamil doesn't say anything.